It's Sunday morning, and I have a message. And today's message is entitled, At What Cost? And so this message goes across several books of the Bible, like Genesis and Exodus, First Kings, Second Kings, and the Gospels. Okay, so um, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, the Gospels. So we start with Moses and Joshua. Joshua was a faithful assistant to Moses. And so when Moses was ready to pass on, he gave the torch over to Joshua. God said, "You get Joshua up here," and he anointed Joshua to take his place. And Joshua has Joshua led the children of Israel into the promised land successfully. And so now let's fast forward to Elijah. Elijah was a powerful prophet. And we know the story about the prophets of Baal and how they tried to do their blood magic and tried to get Baal to light the wood, but he wouldn't. And Elijah made fun of him and poured water on his wood, and God lit that wood up wet, soaking wet. And how he ordered the prophets of Baal to be destroyed. And so this caused Jezebel, who was a prophetess of Baal, to put a hit out on Elijah's life. And this did something to Elijah. And so God gave him an assistant, and his assistant's name was Elisha. And Elisha was a good and faithful servant. And when it was time for God to take Elijah, Elisha says, I want a double portion of what you have. And so Elijah left him his mantle, his cloak, and God gave him a double portion of what Elisha had. And so now Elisha had a servant or a second in command, and his name was Gehazi. Gehazi was a good and faithful servant up until this general comes along. His name was Naaman, and he was a very rich man. He had leprosy, and Elisha healed him of his leprosy. So he wanted to shower all these things on Elijah, but Elijah didn't live that kind of life. Like, he was kind of nomadic, right? Like, he couldn't move like he needed to move if he was weighed down with a bunch of things. And so, he refused them and sent Naaman on his way. But Gehazi saw all that stuff and was like, nah. So he goes and gets some stuff and hides it in his tent. Elisha says, hey. So he goes to Elijah, and Elijah's like, you got something to tell me, son? And he's like, what are you talking about? And he said, well, since you since you decided to take those things when I said no, uh, you are going to have what Naaman had. And so Gehazi ended up with leprosy, not just him, it went down his family line. For that little bit of stuff, Gehazi lost his mantle. Instead of having a double portion of what Elijah had, he ended up with leprosy instead, and he lost his mantle. Fast forward to Judas. Judas was chosen as one of the 12 disciples. And he ended up being the keeper of the coin. And something happened when that woman put that perfume on Jesus, and he calculated what that perfume would be. And he was like, nah. So he said, oh, I'm going to get my coin. So he goes and he gets 30 pieces of silver for turning Jesus in. But when he saw what they did to Jesus, he tried to give the money back. And they're like, nah, it It wore on him so bad that he ended up taking his own life. So instead of becoming an apostle, right, having your own book of the Bible, like being remembered forever, carrying Jesus' mantle, he ended up in a tree. And so we have got to be more concerned about our assignment. We've got to be more diligent about with our gifts and with our anointings. We have to have more purpose in what Jesus has us doing, right? More purpose in what God has blessed us with than we are with them 30 pieces of silver. That silver gonna get you in trouble. At what cost did they lose their mantle? They lost their mantle and they lost everything. Like for those 30 pieces of silver or those blocks or whatever Gehazi got, he got a lot. For that, you lost everything. Is it worth it? At what cost do you prioritize things over Jesus? Things over your giftings, right? Things over your anointing. At what cost? The cost is you end up losing everything, and it's just not worth it. How many entertainers have we seen have the world, and then next thing you know, you see them. They're on the street, strung out on drugs somewhere, lost everything, or they die. They're broke. They lost it all. How many times have we seen that? Way too many. Way too many. How many lottery winners have we seen with millions and they die with nothing? With your anointing, with your gifting, when you follow this path that Jesus has set out for you, when you do that, you're going to end up with the blessings, right? Richly blessed. But when you follow the path of the silver, you're going to lose it all. When the silver becomes more than Jesus, when the silver is here and Jesus is here, when the silver is here and your gifts and anointings are here, you end up losing it all. And that's the cost. Join us again next time when Inniswell Ministries International presents It's Sunday morning. Until then, bye.